I'd like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Hello and welcome to Funny You Would Ask. I'm your host, Betsy Begonia. This is my co-host, Frank the Fox. And Happy New Year! It's 2022, Frank. Do you have any New Year's resolutions? Well, it's important to set practical and reasonable goals for ourselves. Otherwise, we tend to focus on our shortcomings or those of others. Well, looking back on 2021, I managed to stop using my vaporizer all the time, which was a really big step for me. And I also stopped drinking alcohol because it just didn't fit into my lifestyle anymore. Yep. Correct. What? I don't talk to my plants. Oh, maybe next year. Well, yeah, but I am setting a personal mental health goal for myself in 2022. It's time to stop pussyfooting around and focus on my personal empowerment. Well, yeah, but that's why I'm pursuing my dreams and I'm setting realistic goals and expectations with a licensed professional. I couldn't have overcome my obstacles in this past year without the help of my therapist. Come on. We sure are, Frank. Have you heard of BetterHelp? Sure is, Frank. BetterHelp with a P. P for power. P for practical goal setting. I will. It's important to set personal goals, and this year I really do believe that it's time to put our mental health at the forefront after the past couple of years and everything that we have been through as individuals and together. I just want to ask you to take a moment and think about something that's been on your mind a lot. Not necessarily something that you want to improve, but maybe there's a habit that you would like to start or stop. Like maybe you're biting your nails a lot and you could benefit from different self-soothing techniques like I did in my past. Or maybe you would like to focus on showing yourself a little more compassion and self-love, and you could really benefit from seeing a professional who can give you insight and help you to reconstruct the image that you have of yourself. Or maybe you just want to learn how to set healthy boundaries so that you can stop saying yes to everything and everyone and spreading yourself so thin. With BetterHelp, you'll have access to over 20,000 licensed therapists worldwide, and you'll be connected with someone who can help you attain your mental health goal of 2022. BetterHelp is not a crisis line and it's not a self-help network. It is professional therapy done securely online. You don't have to be calling around on the phone trying to find a therapist within your network or having to travel really far just to find the only one in your entire region. And you also won't have to sit in uncomfortable waiting rooms. You can connect with a therapist via video, phone, or text message in your home, in your car, or wherever you are. With BetterHelp, you can start communicating with a licensed therapist within 48 hours. You will receive timely and thoughtful responses anytime that you need to talk to someone and you're feeling a little bit lost. It's affordable, financial aid is available to those who need it, and it's really quick and easy to sign up. So you can at least go poke around and see what it's all about. You can join 2 million people who have signed up and taken charge of their mental health with a licensed professional already. Follow my link in the description below. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. You'll get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. Prioritize your mental health and start living a happier life today. Well, after this video, where were we? Welcome to Funny You Would Ask, the show where I answer all of your frequently asked questions about houseplants. Did I already introduce us? I did? Oh, okay. Well, let's just get started then, shall we? Frequently asked question number 1. James DeCleston asked, why did my ivy plants die when I brought them home? Alexa, who's running the lights? Who's running the lights on the set, excuse me. Alexa, turn off the corner lamp. Alexa, turn off the TV lamp. Someone please get her off the set. Can someone please get her off the set? I have seen enough of her. No, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Every time. It's every time. I thought we discussed this. I'm just saying that every single time that we start to film, something goes wrong. And you know that it's usually Alexa. It's the lights, it's the sound, it's always something with her. She spilled coffee on me last time. I'm tired of it. I don't care if she's an intern. James DeCleston asked, why did my ivy plants die when I brought them home? Well, James, I imagine that you brought them home from a nursery and that you didn't rip them off the side of a brick house. At least I hope so. Anyway, typically the answer to this is the conditions have changed, maybe a bit too dramatically for the plant. And when it comes to ivy, they do tend to be a little sensitive as indoor plants. There are a lot of different types of ivy, so in this case, I'm going to talk about English ivy since it's one of the most common types that you'll find in nurseries and gardens. Ivy needs a lot of light, not necessarily hours of direct sun, although a little bit wouldn't hurt. And usually the problem is that when they're in the greenhouse, they have hours and hours of very bright indirect light, then you bring it home and they just can't really thrive in the more dim conditions, or they just don't adjust very well. Especially if it's variegated ivy. Variegated plants will always require even more light than their plain old traditional green colored brethren because they cannot photosynthesize as efficiently as a fully green plant. It's also pretty common to overwater ivy. Oftentimes when you buy it at the greenhouse, it'll be in a really rich, dense potting mix. So you want to put it in something else, and usually they'll do just fine in a regular houseplant potting mix that has perlite and plenty of aeration. But you don't want to leave them in this like soggy, mucky, dense potting mix situation, and you don't want it to stay wet for too long. They do like to dry out between waterings. Ivy leaves can also hide pests pretty well, so as usual, always inspect plants really closely before you ever even purchase them or bring them home. I'm talking bring a magnifying glass with you to the greenhouse and check those things for pests. It would be a disaster if you brought home an ivy plant not realizing that it was covered in spider mites and then you have an entire infestation in your home. Luckily, ivy, especially English ivy, is usually not very expensive, so on the bright side, if you kill a few of them while you're learning how to care for it, it shouldn't hurt your budget too badly. We don't always get it right the first time. I've killed myself a begonia or fern or two. Or 8, you know. Over the years, it's not like in a week. Frequently asked question number 2, why are the edges of the leaves of my begonia / calathea / gopursia / any high humidity loving plant turning brown along the edges? First of all, it could be too little water. If you're letting the pot dry out too much between waterings, then the plant might be suffering and drying up at the edges. They're really delicate plants, and when it comes to figuring out a good watering schedule for them, and I say schedule loosely because you should never really water on a schedule, but rather water your plants when they need watered, which might be more frequently in the hot summer months and a lot less frequently in the dreary winter months when they go dormant. It's a delicate balance with plants like begonias and calatheas, gopursia, as we like to call them now, here, in the sphere, everywhere, really, they've been renamed. You want to make sure that you have a nice airy potting mix that doesn't stay too soggy for too long, but you also don't want the potting mix to be too wet for too long. So, it's kind of, you know, you just got to roll with the punches on that one. It could also be caused by too low humidity. Begonias, calatheas, a lot of plants that come from subtropical or tropical regions are going to do best and really thrive in very humid conditions. There are a lot of plants out there that will do okay in regular household humidity. There's a plant behind me here, my Begonia Comte de Mirabelle. I know that I've shown it 1 million, billion, trillion times, and I actually just repotted it. I hacked it up and I repotted it so that it looks bushier and fuller, and I'm going to stake it this time around. And that is a cane begonia that does very well in regular household humidity, whereas Begonia maculata whitey is a cane begonia that a lot of people struggle with because it requires very high humidity. It's a plant that really needs to be beside the humidifier or in a place where there's like 60, 70, we're talking 80% humidity and a lot of bright indirect light, and then it's gonna thrive. Rhizomatous begonias, a lot of times they really need a lot of humidity, and some of them are never gonna thrive unless they're in terrarium conditions. So low humidity can often cause the edges of the leaves to turn crispy and brown. It could also be the levels of chlorine or chloramine in your tap water if you're watering your plants with tap water. Calatheas are particularly susceptible to getting brown, burnt tips at the edges from tap water. Begonias, it happens to them as well. Spider plants are also notorious for this. I addressed this in a previous video. I made a video a long time ago about how to care for Calathea, and I talk about getting rid of chlorine or chloramine in water. And here's the thing. A lot of people believe that you can get rid of chlorine by letting a bucket of water sit out for like 12 to 24 hours. It's believed that the chlorine will evaporate. Now, yeah, to some extent that is true. However, a lot of municipalities use chloramine. And the reason that they use chloramine is that it doesn't evaporate as readily as chlorine does. And in fact, if you do this and leave a bucket of tap water out, the water is going to evaporate, the chloramine is going to remain in the water, and what you're going to get is a bucket of water that's even more dense with chloramine. So it's going to be even worse for the plant. If you'd like to know more about that, you can go and check out my video on Calathea care, or leave down in the comments below if you would like me to cover that topic specifically. I can do that. Other reasons that this can happen: mood swings, asocial behavior. Begonias are very tender-hearted. So, talk sweetly to them or give them space. Sometimes they just need a bit of space. High humidity and a bit more space, and you'll see them begin to thrive. Frequently asked question number 3, what houseplant should I start with? Well, I could do an entire video about this, and if you want to see an entire video about that, let me know. But the reality is, it depends on who you are, and what you like, and what you want, and what you can have. Can't have it all. You can't always get what you want. My first advice is always to assess your living space. Which way do your windows face? Are they north facing? Okay, well then that really limits your choices there. You're gonna have to choose a plant that does okay in really low light, like a prayer plant, for example. I have one in my bedroom that gets barely a lick of light and it's doing just fine. If you have west facing windows, then you're gonna do better with plants that like a lot of really bright indirect light, some sunshine, or you could just pull them away from the windows a bit so that they don't get, sunburnt if they're low light loving plants. Low light loving. I shouldn't have said that. Plants that do okay in low light. And also, how dry is your climate? Is your home 50% humidity? Is it really low humidity? Perhaps you can only have succulents and cacti in your home. So you have to figure out what can you accommodate. If you have a home with really high humidity, or you can run a humidifier in your home without risking mold or mildew or other things, then you could probably find plants that are humidity lovers. My second piece of advice, aside from assessing your space and figuring out how much light you can provide, how much humidity you can provide, and what kind of caretaker you are, are you an overwaterer? Are you do you forget about stuff, etc., is buy the cheapest plant, right? If you are really into Hoyas, or you think they're really interesting and cool and you want to get started collecting Hoyas, or you just want to try it out, get something like a Hoya carnosa or a Hoya crimson princess, or something that's really common that you see at the greenhouse all the time, that's more on the cheaper end of the spectrum. You don't want to just run out and buy a Hoya peninsularis. They're very costly. They have, higher humidity requirements, and it would really suck if you spent a lot of money on a plant just because you really like it and you're not prepared to care for it, and so you lose it, and then you lose that money and you feel heartbroken on top of it. Let's not do that to ourselves, right? This is the year. This is the year that we are taking care of our mental health. So that's my second piece of advice. Always buy the cheapest one. If you really want to get into begonias, don't buy some super rare $100 begonia from a Japanese vendor. You know what I mean? Go to the greenhouse, see what they've got. See if they've got rhizomatous begonias. Check them really closely, make sure they don't have powdery mildew, pests, things like that. Make sere they haven't already been overwatered. You know, just check for signs of suffering. You can practice and you can figure out how to best care for it. If it dies, it's okay. It costs you $2, $3, I don't know, something like that. It's much better to start with the cheapy cheapos. Well, that's it. That was 3, right? I can count, right? That was 3? Yes. All right. That was 3 questions for today. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you learned something along the way. If you have a question about houseplants and houseplant care, leave it in the comments down below and your question will be featured in a future episode of Funny You Would Ask. We hope that your transition into the new year has been positive and that you will achieve all of the personal and professional goals that you have set for yourself in the days ahead. If you'd like to see more videos about houseplant love and care, and you really enjoy videos like this that are kind of fun and silly but educational, feel free to subscribe or share my content on social media. It really does help me as a content creator. And you can support my channel, Frank, myself, by joining my Patreon community. The link to my Patreon is down below. Or if you're not ready for that kind of commitment, you can just buy us a coffee on buymeacoffee.com/BetsyBegonia. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on Funny You Would Ask. I'd like to thank my patrons and my energy boosters from buymeacoffee.com. Thank you to my Hoya My Gosh patrons, Anthony, Rankin, Carolyn Green, Frederick Bowman, Jazz and Jamie and Tina Halberg, my Begonia buddies, Anna Bansoff, Casey Smirnotopoulos, Krabby Cat Darcy, Levish Aaron Meow, Fenner Lamb, Grams Loves Plants, Haley O'Donnell, Jennifer Broadfur, Jordan, Kayla Mann, Kristen Moore, Leah A, Michelle Sadlowski, Pamela, Robin L. Jennings, Sherry Kumar, Tisha McCann, and Vicky Dingler. My Pothos pals, Amanda, Amin, Ashley Eagle, Brianna Phillips, Cece, Christina Wong, Claire Lynn, Denise Grimm, Elizabeth Mary, Elizabeth Velasquez, Emily Cephalou, Emma Greenwood, Eva Ware, Gracie, James Kopp, Jesse, Karen, Cassandra Lewis, Kelly Westover, Lexi Haynes, Lydia, Lilith Moon, Linda Thea, Lisa Glandon, Nicholas Curtis, Olga, one very kind anonymous person, plantgirl_50 *, Bree, Samantha, Shelley Everett, Sophia, Steve A, Verder Streams, Wanyang Zhang, and of course my energy booster on buymeacoffee.com, Christina G. Thank you all so very much for your support. I'll see you next time.